Hello, my name is Carol Wilhide Justin, and this is my paper, Mokuhanga and the Sense of Touch, for Nara Mokuhanga International Print Conference 2021. I'm now going to share my screen. As a long-time London resident, I have noticed a fascination with all things Japanese take hold in recent years. A case in point is traditional Japanese cuisine. Japanese restaurants, once very rare indeed, have proliferated around the country. Sushi is widely available in supermarkets, and diners in search of fast food are as familiar with ramen bars as they are with burger joints. Television documentaries have helped popularize Japan both as a holiday destination and a source of gardening and landscaping inspiration. The 2021 Tokyo Olympics have served to further showcase Japanese culture and aesthetics. The same is true for Japanese art, specifically Mokuhanga. Landmark exhibitions such as Hokusai Beyond the Great Wave exhibition at the British Museum in 2017 introduced the technique and its environmentally friendly materials, so unlike the toxic chemicals used in much of Western printmaking, to many people for the very first time. And this is the current exhibition at the British Museum, Hokusai, the Book of Everything. In 2014, I was awarded a residency at the MeLab studio, Fujikawa-Guchiko, Japan, where I was taught the Mokuhanga technique by Japanese sensei under the formidable eye of Keiko Kudota. On my return, I gained a place at the Royal College of Art, enabling me to embed those techniques and develop my own interpretation of them, eventually graduating with an MA in print. Japanese woodcut continues to be my principal artistic practice. My understanding and appreciation of Mokuhanga was further deepened when I went to Helsinki in 2018 to work with Tuula Moinen. I was apprehensive meeting her for the first time, but we quickly established a rapport based on our love of Mokuhanga and our shared experiences of teaching and making. We compared tools and ways of making kento registrations in a very hands-on way, learning from each other. Connecting with her and her practice gave me a link to a continuum of Mokuhanga through her own training with Akira Kurosaki and generations of Mokuhanga masters before him. Ever since my residency at MeLab, I have been teaching Mokuhanga to enthusiastic students in various educational colleges across London. Alongside these classes, I also teach Western press-based relief printing courses in liner cut and multi-plate woodcut. These classes vary between long-term length courses aimed at advanced students and short 2-day taster and introductory courses for beginners. My teaching experience has highlighted the similarities and the differences between the two printing methods, which I would like to explore in this paper. I'd also like to demonstrate how the study of Mokuhanga can reconnect printmakers with their sense of touch and promote new ways of working. My students come from a broad spectrum of ages and backgrounds. Some are young professionals with busy jobs. Many have not made art since their school days and lack confidence in their own abilities. Time and again, my students will tell me that they spend most of their working day on the computer and barely put pen to paper anymore, let alone draw. They're often impatient with their own lack of dexterity, but at the same time impose unrealistic artistic goals on themselves. Mokuhanga comes as a revelation to them. One of the most obvious similarities between Western style relief printmaking and Mokuhanga are the cutting tools. Although the hangito has no Western equivalent, the hirito and the marito are directly analogous to the chisel and the gouge. Where the two techniques markedly diverge, however, is in the printing process itself. Printing liner cut blocks, for example, typically involves using a roller or brayer to add a thin, even layer of oil-based ink to the surface of the block, placing the block onto the bed of the press between registration marks, laying the paper on top, and rolling the block and the paper through a metal roller. After rolling through the press, the ink is transferred to the paper and the print is pulled from the block. In one of my classes, a student once set the roller in motion, crossed the room to collect some forgotten item, only to return when the roller had completed its rotation. Bad practice, certainly, but one that serves to emphasize the point that the artist is no longer part of the printing process. Effectively, this has been surrendered to the machine. Mokuhanga, on the other hand, employs all the senses, and most crucially, the overlooked sense of touch. The feel of the wood grain, the exact amount of pressure you need to exert with the tools to achieve a cursive line, the tactile nuance of different washi papers, the press of the baron, all these become haptic memories. I'm frequently asked, how much water do I add to the nori? How wet is too wet? My answer is always that it is a matter of experience. More than any other printmaking process that I have ever encountered, Mokuhanga is a holistic technique where every element is relevant. Even the weather plays a significant role. It is wonderful to see my Mokuhanga students reawaken suppressed senses and re-establish individual control over the printing process. In De Anima, Aristotle remarked on how perception works in different ways. Taste and touch require contact, whereas the other senses allow distance. Of the senses, vision has been the most commonly used as a metaphor for certainty. Seeing is believing. As Hannah Arendt commented in her book, The Human Condition, thinking has been thought of in terms of seeing, and yet we know that our eyes can deceive us. It is by touching that we ascertain the true quality of a piece of fabric or paper. It is by touching that we tell whether a line has been cut deep enough, a block is damp enough, and so on. Touch is infinitely more intimate than sight. Touch is our first sense, developing in the womb before ears and eyes have begun to form. In an age of screen-based media and digital reproductions, we have abundant access to images, and yet so many of these images are accessed at one remove via screen or as digital prints. Both are represented as an absence of surface. This lack of touch has been felt very keenly during these last 18 months. We've become acutely aware of the difference between seeing and hearing loved ones on a Zoom call and their tangible presence, which can be embraced. Touch has come to be talked about and implicitly understood as central to our sense of ourselves. During lockdown, people found that using their hands, whether to knit, garden, crochet, or make art, gave them a sense of well-being and connection that had often been absent in their pre-COVID lives. Returning to the studio after teaching online during lockdown, I found students more eager than ever to embrace new ways of working, one that embraces the handmade, that is environmentally friendly and can be practiced at home. There's also a deeper appreciation for the craft of Mokuhanga. My students are very impressed by the hugely skilled and time-consuming traditional production of beautiful washi paper, the respectful use of resources, and the deep understanding of materials inherent in Japanese woodcut. Time is implicit in Mokuhanga. It cannot be hurried. I found the carving of the blocks to be a meditative, considered process, accompanied by a rhythmic, soft scratching sound as you cut into the wood. Before printing, the blocks and paper must be dampened over time, not long enough and the block will not be saturated or the paper will not have absorbed water evenly. One of the unforeseen aspects of lockdown was the opportunity it gave us to take a long, hard look at our busy, normal lives and reassess what really matters most. This sense of mindfulness is inherent in the Mokuhanga process. Mokuhanga epitomizes a debate between art and technology that has been ongoing since the 19th century. Paradoxically, Eastern aesthetics has been seen as an antidote to machine culture, and yet it also represents the acme of AI technology. The separation between applied and pure art, between art and craft, did not exist in Japan for a long time. In the West, one would have to go back to the ideals of William Morris in the 19th century to find a similar attempt to bridge the divide. We have so much to learn from the traditional practice of Mokuhanga. Climate change has become, as it has long threatened to be, a catastrophe for our planet and our way of life. Mokuhanga, with its safe environmental processes and its non-toxic materials, shows us a way ahead. Studying the way washi paper was made and continues to be made by hand, the extraordinary care, attention, and skill required to produce each individual sheet astonishes my students, leaving them more respectful of the paper that they use. Traditional pigments sourced from indigenous plants producing the most delicate hues was showcased at a wonderful exhibition in 2019 at Japan House in London called Living Colors, Kasan, the Language of Japanese Color Combinations, where the appreciation of color in Japan, the close relationship with natural surroundings, and sensitivity to the changing seasons promote a relationship to nature all too often ruptured in our modern urban lifestyles. The silks and washi on display were all hand-dyed by the Yoshioka dyeing workshop in Kyoto, using only natural materials. Yoshioka Sachio, a fifth-generation master dyer, had unearthed recipe books dating back 2 centuries in his family archives. He continues to research, source plants, and practice age-old dyeing techniques. Although we have become so accustomed to our throwaway culture that we are not even aware of how our own pigments are made, nevertheless, we can still see the difference between the soft colors of the ukiyo-e prints and the garish aniline dyes brought in from the West. I have a student in my advanced class who is a plant specialist, and she has become so fascinated with this aspect of printing that she now makes many of her own pigments from plants grown on her allotment, using them in her printing to great effect. In many ways, we have come full circle. The ease with which images are generated on screen or made digitally has fostered a new respect for uniqueness. Prints that show the evidence of the handmade, prints that are different from those that are mass-produced, are valued for their authenticity. When we study the old or traditional techniques of handmaking, we rediscover a new sense of what it means to be fully human, connected both with nature and our sense of touch. I want to finish on a personal note. The sense of touch could be said to have brought me to Mokuhanga in the first place. In 2013, I was the artist in residence at Orleans House in Twickenham, southwest London. The show I put on at the end of my residency featured an installation of large relief prints of branching forms, which I suspended from the ceiling to simulate the experience of walking through trees. One day, a visitor to the exhibition started to handle the artwork. I was not particularly pleased about this, and I went over to speak to the woman. It turned out that she had a paper shop in Tokyo, was very knowledgeable about washi paper. We had a pleasant talk, and she left her details in my address book. Her name was Keiko Kudota. And this concludes my paper. Thank you.